The Boston Celtics are in a catastrophic shooting slump. They've lost 3 out of the last 4 games, the only win coming against a Toronto Raptors team that was down 3 of their starters. And yes, they were without Jaylen Brown tonight against the Pacers. But that being said, you're playing the worst offense in the NBA, the worst team record-wise in the NBA, and yet again, the Boston Celtics come up short. What's up, everyone, and welcome into your Celtic Source, home of your 24-15 Boston Celtics, coming off of a depressing loss to the Indiana Pacers, 98-96. Neither team breaks 100. The Celtics in this game had stretches, and when I say stretches, I mean, 6, 7, 8 minutes of game time where they failed to score a basket. Turnovers were key in this game, but most importantly, just a shooting disaster where the Celtics shoot under 30% from 3. In fact, I believe they go 9 of 35, 26% on the night. Derek White goes 2 of 9. Sam Hauser goes 2 of 9. Pritchard 3 of 7. Anthony Simons coming off the bench 2 of 7. And I've said this before, shooting on this team is contagious. When one guy doesn't have it, everyone doesn't have it. When one guy has it, everyone has it. And that's why you're getting these inconsistent games here from the Celtics where on one night they look fantastic and they're going up against a great team and they're holding their own. And on another night, they're playing down to their opponent like they did tonight. And sometimes they come away with a loss. And we're going to get into all this game. As I'm recording this, the Texans are up 7-6 coming out of the halftime. We're still waiting to see the winner will play the Patriots on Sunday. It's been confirmed Sunday afternoon, either the 3 p.m. slot or the 6 p.m. slot. Before we get into this game, one other sort of programming note here is we're going to go live tomorrow for a bonus episode, and we're going to talk about sort of a state or an NBA league-wide trade deadline preview. We're going to try and go through, every team's, sort of philosophy, what their philosophy should be at the trade deadline this season. Yes, there are some teams that are going to stay pat and not do a thing. We're going to talk a little bit more about the Trae Young situation in Washington where he still hasn't played, and I'm not sure if he's going to play because, quite frankly, the Washington Wizards are trying to lose games. And Trae Young will elevate that offense enough that you're going to win some games, which is not in the business of the Washington Wizards right now. But there are some other teams. Atlanta Hawks are an interesting team now that they've traded Trae Young. Ja Morant could be on the move soon. Who knows what teams would be even looking to take on a guy like that with his contract and just the problems he has both on the court and off the court. But getting back to this game, I think, we start with the first half and then we go into sort of what, derailed the Celtics late into this game. And obviously the headline is the shooting. But that being said, the Celtics, they kept the game pretty close in the first quarter. It was sort of neck and neck. Jay Huff on the Indiana Pacers is a guy that has been shooting under 30% from 3 this season. And he chucks them up at a ridiculous rate anyway. That's part of the Pacers' problems this season. Is the fact that they have a lot of guys shooting very low in the three-point percentage and still taking them anyway. And yet, it always seems like against the Celtics, I'm not sure whether it's just, it must be something the Celtics are doing, because teams are just, as of recently, are just heating it up from three. And Jay Huff, a guy who, as I said, is a horrific shooter this season, goes, if I'm not mistaken, in this game, coming off the bench, I believe, starting, he goes 4 of 7 from 3. In the first half, he, he was making these contested three-point shots. I think he made 3 of them, or 2 of them in the first half, and then 1 in the second half. But it's just the timely ones, right? Like, you look at the way he shot in this game, right? Going 4 for 7. But it's when they came, right? They come, adding on to a Pacers run that they've already, taken off and grabbed momentum, and then you have these 2 backbreaking threes. Obviously, they're not, the time early in the game is not a huge, problem or factor in this outcome. But the fact that you have these guys that are just getting these wide open threes or contested threes and knocking them down, set the standard for this game. A game where the Pacers continue to shoot lights out. I believe they did finish the game 16 of 37, 43%, compared to the Celtics 26%, right? And it really continued into the third quarter. I think a lot of the problems were, the Celtics, failed to get consistent offense, generate, good looks throughout the night. I think the absence of Jaylen Brown and the gravity that he brings, taking, players off of Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Anthony Simons, whoever it is, right, that hurt the Celtics a lot in this game. And, they've been strategic of when they, sit Jaylen Brown. He's only missed 3 games. The 3 games he's missed have come against the Indiana Pacers, the Washington Wizards, and I forget the one other team that he sat against. But the fact is, they've been picking the worst teams the Celtics have played to sit them, and yet this is a game that you should win without Jaylen Brown, and the Celtics come up short, right? You got a lot of step-back threes from Derek White, sidestep threes from Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, Anthony Simons, a lot of ISO, heavy ball, a lot of tunnel vision, not looking to pass the ball around. A really unfortunate stretch of games. And I know I'm talking about this game specifically, and they did have a good, solid game against the Spurs before Wemby just made some ridiculous shots to win that game for them. But over the last, week and a half, not really a week and a half, ever since the Bulls game, so the Nuggets game, the Raptors game, the Spurs game, and now this game, the Celtics have not been shooting well, and their offense really hasn't flowed great either. A lot of ISO ball, even in that Nuggets game, right? Jaylen Brown, very inconsistent shooting, pretty inefficient as well. A lot of ISO ball down the stretch of that game. I think it's coming to a point now. The Celtics had a great start. They had a poor start, but through November, December, they caught on a roll and were looking like one of the better teams in the league. But now these sort of January doldrums are coming up, and they are missing a guy like Jason Tatum every single night. Just not even the shooting that he has, just the rebounding, the playmaking, a guy that can take the gravity off of Jaylen Brown. And Jaylen Brown has been playing like an MVP. Arguably a top 5 MVP candidate at this point in the season. But I think teams are catching on to a way to slow him down, and the Celtics just don't have enough firepower around him. Right? And, getting back to this game specifically, it goes into the half. I think the Celtics were up like maybe 5 or something like that. I'm not quite sure on the halftime score. And then the Celtics come out and have a disastrous start to the third quarter. A 17-2 run for the Indiana Pacers to start the quarter. Jay Huff continuing to knock down those threes. I think he hit the 2 more threes in that stretch. But a lot of the, Celtics or the Pacers run, right? A lot of their points in this run were from the Celtics' self-inflicted wounds, as are most of these poor performances over the last 4 games or so, right? There's not much the other teams are doing besides that Spurs game, and maybe a little bit in the Nuggets game where Jamal Murray just went off. But these turnovers, right? A team that rarely turns the ball over, a team that is second in the NBA in turnover ratio, right? A team that, in today's NBA, it used to be you could turn the ball over 5, 6, 7 times and be okay in the game. But in today's NBA, with the pace and the quickness on every single team, and in sometimes all 5 players on a court from a team, you can't afford to be turning the ball over, because it's just free points without taking much time off the clock, without exerting much energy if you're the other team. These turnovers just lead to transition buckets on almost every single possession these days in the NBA. There are very few possessions where you have a live ball turnover and they don't lead to points on the other end. It's just so easy with the talent on the offensive end to make teams pay. And if you have to be doing that, every single time down the floor, it gets exhausting for the not the defensive team, the team getting the turnovers, but the team making those turnovers, the team originally on offense. It just gets exhausting, and you see teams like the Clippers, the Bucks, that really struggle with that, with their old age and some of their veteran players in Brook Lopez, in Giannis sometimes, in guys like even not even on those teams like Draymond Green on the Warriors, Al Horford to an extent, right? These veteran leaders that are past their prime a little bit and are starting to slow down. They can't afford to be running up and down the court on every single possession. They need a possession where they can calm down, regain their energy, their breath, and get a fresh bit of air. And the Celtics just don't have a chance to do that right now. And luckily for the Celtics, they have a lot of young guys that they can sort of start rotating when guys get out of breath. But the one position you don't have that depth in is the center position. And Cade has been fantastic when he's been on the court in this game. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was one of the only guys that was a plus for the Celtics. If I'm not mistaken, no, never mind. He was a minus 12. But that being said, he goes 7 of 9 from the field, 15 points, 8 rebounds, has a couple assists. But you don't have a lot of depth behind him. Luka Garza plays okay, and he's been a good backup big when he's been on the floor. But you don't want him running up and down the court. Not only is he running out of breath really quickly and having to sub off, which just hurts your chances of winning the game even more, but you're also prone to get these injuries with a bigger guy like that, who is going up and down, landing on guys sometimes. You don't want rolled ankles from these guys. Very easy to do that. And that's, Kata had a couple scares in this game just from, having to work so hard to get up and down the floor. But that being said, right, Joe Mazzulla calls 2 timeouts within, 2 minutes of each other. And, it felt like the Celtics had turned a page at that moment. Something Joe Mazzulla said in that huddle, sort of calmed the Celtics down, but also sparked a bit of, urgency that they needed to get this game back underhand. And they do that. Peyton Pritchard scores 11 points in the third quarter. Peyton Pritchard was really the only one that had it going tonight offensively, but the shooting was still not great. 10 of 22. 3 of 7 is not terrible from 3, but 10 of 22 is pretty inefficient. Right? And if he's your best player on the night, you can just imagine what everyone else was like. Right? But Peyton Pritchard does have 11 points in the third quarter. Luka Garza did have a nice save to stop the ball from going out of bounds. Gets it to Simons, who gets it to Pritchard for a 3. But as I said countless times on this show already, the 3-point shooting just continues to be a catastrophic failure and letdown to this team right now, because they're doing, a lot of the good things on the defensive end. The defense hasn't been a big problem, right? You hold a team, even if they're the worst team in the NBA, you hold them to 98, or worst offensive team in the NBA, you hold them to 98 points, and once again, your offense cannot come through and win you this game. It's tied late with the Celtics, getting that comeback after being down, 15 points after that 17-2 run. And Siakam wins it on a step-through sort of floater, mid-range shot where, there's pretty great defense from the Celtics for about 22 seconds of the 24-second shot clock. And just at about 2 seconds, I think Derek White backs off. He doesn't want to get the foul, jump up and sort of get faked on a shot by Siakam. And that allows Siakam to just step right through and throw up the little layup, or a little floater for the win. And then the Celtics had like 6 seconds or something like that, and they weren't able to get a good shot. Derek White ends up chucking up a pretty deep and contested 3, bounces off the rim for the loss. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up here. We will be back tomorrow. If you guys want, in our live stream, we can talk about this game as well a little bit. But we are gonna mostly focus on the NBA as a whole and some of the storylines coming up around this trade deadline. And then, as the week goes on, we play the Heat on Thursday, so a little bit of a gap there, 3-day gap, and then we have, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, we play the who do we play? I know we play the Pistons on Monday, but before that we play Atlanta. We play Atlanta on Saturday. And that's the 3 episodes. That'll actually bring us to the halfway mark of the season. It's actually crazy, the fact that we're already there. It felt like just the other day we were just starting the season. We're already halfway through January. That's incredible. But yeah, that means we will have a podcast episode coming out Sunday at some time. I know the last episode this past Sunday came out a little bit later than I had hoped. My apologies for that. But we will try to get out that episode early on in the game, or early on Sunday morning, and that allows us to do a little bit of a Patriots preview. As I sit here now, the score of the game is, give me 1 second, the score of the game is still 7-6 with right at the start of the fourth quarter here. So we will see who we are playing. By the time this comes out, obviously the game will be decided. So we'll do a preview for that game in the podcast episode as well, and we will try and go live for the game against the Atlanta Hawks, both the actual game and for a live post-game show as well. And then once we're done with that, I will get down to recording the podcast episode. But yeah, that's going to do it for this. Make sure to check out the latest podcast episode where we previewed the Patriots-Chargers game, but spent the majority of the game talking about the Spurs and Nuggets games against the Celtics, with a little bit of talk on Jaylen Brown, Joe Mazzulla, and his coaching philosophies this season. So make sure to check that out. You can watch it on YouTube or Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcast in audio format. Also, make sure to check me out on Instagram, TikTok. Unfortunately, about a couple weeks ago, we had to start a new Instagram account. For some reason, it got deleted. So please give me a follow there. That will be really appreciated as we start to try and build that up again. But yeah, until next time, take care of yourselves. We will be back for another instant reaction after the Miami Heat game on Thursday. And go C's.